Okay, good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, March 19th, 2014. I'm Councilmember Joe Buscaino, Chair of Public Works and Gain Reduction Committee, and joined by Councilmember Gil Cedillo. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to our committee meeting, and I see we have a few general public comment cards. We'll open our general public comment. I believe there's some folks here from some gang reduction, gang intervention folks. Thank you. Welcome. I'm going to bring up Pastor Q. Jean-Marie? Jean-Marie. Welcome. So these are non-agenda items. You have 2 minutes to speak on non-agenda items. Thank you, Pastor, for being here.
Yes.
And welcome.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Hello, Pastor Q, and I'm here. I actually pastor a church on Skid Row, and I'm here representing Raise LA. As you know, Skid Row community is a very distressed community, and we have a lot of individuals who are what I call in a state of, when you open Pandora's box, you can't really close it. So we deal with a lot of issues, and sometimes it seems like there's no hope. But we feel like one of the issues is that in Los Angeles, people don't make a living wage. So sometimes parents have to work 2 jobs, and kids end up on the street. They become at risk sometimes because of systematic issues and not just personal stuff. So I'm here on behalf of Raise LA because I believe that if we give people a living wage, that it will be better for our community. It makes it easier for parents to stay home with their children. As a pastor, I'm concerned about the morality of our people, and I talk to them about moral issues, about personal responsibility. But I also believe that as a city, as a community, we need to also deal with systematic issues that that makes people at risk.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor. God bless you, and thank you for fighting for social justice across our city. Appreciate that, sir. I'd like to welcome Teresa Ellers. She'll be followed by Franco Vega. Teresa, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Teresa. I work at SAGE, Strategic Actions for a Just Economy, in Councilmember Price's district. So too bad that he's not here. So even though we're here to talk about the living wage issue in hotels with more than 100 rooms, we want to be able to connect this issue with larger issues, like Pastor Q was mentioning, larger systemic issues, and saying that a living wage affects a plethora of things. So SAGE convenes the South Los Angeles Community Jobs Coalition, which implements local hiring agreements into living wage jobs made possible by community benefits agreements. On a daily basis, we see how scarce and valuable good job opportunities are for South LA residents. And I'm here to let you know how a living wage will directly impact our community. A poverty wage or a living wage can negatively or positively impact low-income individuals and families' housing conditions, mental health, chronic disease, lifespan, educational opportunities, access to medical care, and whether they decide to associate with a gang. All of these issues are interconnected, and SAGE supports a campaign to raise the minimum wage for some of Los Angeles hotel workers in the hope that one day all South LA residents will receive living wages. SAGE and the Jobs Coalition want to say thank you to Council Members Price and Cedillo for their great support for this policy, and we are excited for Los Angeles to pass such a groundbreaking, people-supporting policy. And then here we have another member of the Jobs Coalition to talk about what a living wage would mean for the people that he works with.
Thank you, Teresa.
Hello, my name is Franco Vega. I'm the CEO of the Right Way Foundation. We're housed in Mr. Cedillo's district. I'm inside Magnolia Place, the community initiative, and I fight for foster youth. I'm an ex-orphan myself.
Oh,
and,
God bless you.
we don't have nothing after we emancipate out the system, literally. My savior was joining the Army when I left, and I don't refer our youth to the military right now due to, we're going to war every day, so that's not a good environment for them. For my foster youth, we tie in mental health services and job readiness training at the same time. We've been sitting on a coalition with SAGE doing the hiring for LA Live for the past 6 years. We have over 95% success rate with our foster youth working at LA Live, but when we place them at minimum wage jobs, which we're thankful for, they fail fast because to them it's not a decent wage, and to wake up for $8 or $9 an hour, work full time, and then lose a lot of their life, and then don't see it in their paychecks, it's just to a dead end. I have a youth coming up after me to speak to, so he can personally touch on the issue of what $15 an hour means to him. But I really support this campaign. I hope you guys really take this in consideration. Our foster youth is a pipeline to prison and prostitution. No one wants to talk about. 85% of young ladies walking the streets come from the foster care system. We just had one of our young ladies been burnt to death on Figueroa and 98th, burnt there where we can't even recognize her no more. And so we have to stop this. And we think that with higher wages, we can really make a dent in this, Also, I'm an ex-knucklehead, and now with this wage, we can compete against the gang banging and drug dealers, You work for 5 hours at $15 an hour, they'll appreciate that compared to minimum wage, and then we can have them stop selling drugs and doing other things like that, or robbing cars. So just thank you guys for taking the time to listen to me.
Thank you, Mr. Vega. Now joined by Councilmember Price and our final speaker, Daniel Cooper. This is our young man that Mr. Vega was referring to. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. How are you?
Finding yourself?
You got some good stories for us to share with, huh?
Man, I don't know if it's good, but it's my life. Hello, my name is Daniel Cooper. I'm an emancipated foster youth. I am homeless. What $15 an hour will mean to me is an affordable, honest living, start. I will be able to support myself legally, would also be able to start, would also be a great start in life rather than being reduced to the street life and the drug world that I'm living in currently. Me personally, I've been in the foster care system for 12 years. I emancipated at the age of 18, and I'm not the average young adult that has a family or friends to go live with or to be able to be accommodated by anything such as food, a house, clothes. So everything that I get right now is me doing for myself. And the foster care system it's not the best, but it's also not the worst. But I feel like this would bring a good change for us young adults coming out the system. And me personally, I feel like it would help me in life as a young man trying to be somebody that can be a role model to younger.
Yes.
And that's where I stand right now. And I am also behind this $15 wage movement up for hotel workers.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing your story. Please be sure to get your information over to Dennis, my policy director, okay? Appreciate that. Any other general public comment cards, Michael?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, with that, the general public comment is now closed, and we'll now look at our agenda. Let's, colleagues, if we can approve items 1 and 2 on consent, unless you have any questions, comments, concerns.
So moved.
Okay, that'll be the order. We'll approve items 1 and 2 on consent. Takes us to item number 3, and I'm going to defer to the maker of the motion, Mr. Cedillo, for item number 3. Michael, if you can read that into the record, please.
Item number 3 is a motion from Councilmember Cedillo, Wesson, and others, and the Bureau of Sanitation 2 report relative to outlining a proposal for the enhanced neighborhood cleanup program throughout the city.
Mr. Cedillo.
I'm sorry, I was having some problems with my allergies.
It's okay.
Let me tell you about our program and what we did. I campaigned for this seat, and what I noticed when I went around the district was something I hadn't seen before, and this was this abundance of bulky items: mattresses, couches, chairs, old televisions, electronic equipment, some stuff related to people rehabbing their homes. And it was, to me, I found it just extraordinary, remarkable, unacceptable. And so I made it a campaign issue. It was interesting because, you can do the polling and the focus groups and all the things that people say are important to you, but then you can just go out and see this on the streets and say, hey, so what do you think about us? So people say, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to clean that up. And so when we came in, we introduced this motion as a pilot. We did this with some extraordinary funds that we found that had been shifted away from our office, but we recaptured them. And we put them to work. It's been, I have to applaud the Bureau of Sanitation. I have to applaud the other partners we've had. I have to applaud the Conservation Corps. It has been remarkable. We have cleaned up alleys that were completely clogged. You could not walk through these alleys. Now you can drive a car through. You could, these streets, and I have some critics who are skeptical about this program, like Supervisor Gloria Molina, but who now praises it, and she has a specific route where she lives. She's my constituent. Can you imagine that? And she evidently drives herself to work. So she drives herself through all the streets, Mount Washington, down this corridor, Broadway, towards downtown LA. And so she's my sharpest critic, and she says, we're cleaning it up. Now, that is a pilot, and that's one experience. For us, the question is, how do we institutionalize this? And how do we make this most effective? So our first step is a 4-point program. First was to show the community that we cared. We saw the bulky items as the broken window. And when people leave the bulky items and government doesn't respond, it says we don't care. Second is you've got to change the policy. And part of this I learned one night while I was campaigning. I come home and watch the city channel to get an idea of what goes on in the city. And there the city was asking people to put it out on the street. So the reason that stuff was out there was in part because we asked people to do it. And so we've changed the policy, and we're trying to create a scenario and a culture where people call for people to come to their homes to then pick it up, like you do FedEx or UPS or pizza, right? You find out somebody's there, they've got something, you go pick it up. So that's the second. We're working on changing the infrastructure, and we have these things called a Valley Buster. Is that what they're called, Valley Buster or Big Valley? Big Valley. Big Valley? Valley Buster. That's the sandwich that Tom LaBonge had on Valley Boulevard.
Yeah, Busy Bee. They have a Valley Buster.
Yeah. So we have these Big Valley trash cans that are pretty impressive, solar powered. Let the Bureau know when they're filled up. They're the equivalent of 10. And then we brand them. And so they look like the business cards that our staff modeled. And so they all say, making the first number one, keep it clean campaign. So we've done that. So we're changing the infrastructure. The Bureau's been very kind, and they put these banners if you drive through my district on the big corridors. Just keep it clean, join the campaign, call these numbers, etc. And then the fourth thing, and this is an ongoing kind of organically growing project, is we have to change the hearts and minds. Because there's no amount of money we can pour into this if people don't change.
Sir, we know that a lot.
This is a community that's half immigrant, right? That's 75% Latino, 17% Asian. That's 92%, half of them, right? Have immigrant origins. Most of them have immigrant origins. Half of them are immigrants, right? So they come here, and I have one of the poorest districts. They're modest, but they're not people who are like that. And so we have to change their hearts and minds, change the policy and make them aware. So part of changing their hearts and minds is we're developing brochures, talking about the programs, going to get into schools, but we're also working with the ethnic media. So we've had great coverage, but also working with Univision, which is like the #1 watched show in North America, is we're working with them, and they're going to do a cleanup, and then we're going to work, and they're going to work with us on the cleanup. So we've got to change the hearts and minds, and that's part of communication in the schools, getting the kids to get to the point like they are with seat belts, like they are with those child seats. You know, they tell their parents, don't do that. And they won't do that. And so we're working on that. So those are the 4 points of our program. It was a great investment for us. We used CDBG, right, CDBG money at the front end. It's in the budget. I will note that this is not a program that is the same for the entire city. Ours is, because it's an immigrant district, it's like the, Ellis Island of the city of LA. It's where people come first. And they come, they're moving, and people are constantly moving. They're moving in, and when they get a better circumstance, they move out. And so they're constantly...
Very transient, huh?
Yeah, it's very transient. And so that's why you see so many, mattresses and couches, et cetera, out in the street. And, it does a couple other things. It's got some public health implications. Sometimes people, will come and utilize stuff that other people throw away. That's not a good practice. And the other part for us that we're finding is that it's got economic development impact.
Sure.
Because nobody wants to invest or build in a community where there's trash all over the street. I mean, it really is the broken window theory. And as we clean up, we're getting a very positive response from the developer community, very positive response from the community around this matter. And then we think finally that it's got a public safety component to it, and that is that, like the broken window theory, if we demonstrate people care about the community, if they're engaged in these cleanups, if they're engaged in the practices, changing the practices, that people become more aware of what's going on in the neighborhood. And we don't have that disconnect of the people who live there and the people who are passing through. And so we think it's got a lot of public safety value as well. And so that's our program. It's called Keep It Clean. And that's why we're here.
I want to start by congratulating and recognizing Mr. Cedillo and his team and the Bureau for being responsive. When a number of our colleagues were running for this seat for council, there was talk of, what kind of experience the Sacramento can bring down to City Hall. Well, it's alive and well here in CD1. Mm-hmm. It's the experience of being responsive, of cleaning our streets, impacting overall quality of life, and issue that we're facing in Watts. Sarah's been a champion for us in Watts for partnering with nonprofits and cleaning. Our alleys are being dumped upon, and I like the approach. It's very systematic. It's comprehensive. Specifically, the education component.
Yep.
On reaching out and letting folks know that don't dump in our city. And then also the enforcement part is quite challenging. And I'd like to hear from the Bureau. I'll turn it over to Mr. Price, but I'd like to hear from the Bureau on the enforcement. We have policy in place where you can turn in these knuckleheads who are dumping in our street and our alleys. I want to know the breakdown. We have to catch them first. We have rewards in place, and part of our efforts in Watts is to educate the public that it's available. And it's easier now to fill out an investigative report, an IR with PD. And of course, the budget and not the funding. If we can have the Bureau step up to address those two concerns, and then I'll over to Mr. Price.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to just applaud and reemphasize the comments that my colleague made from the first. In the ninth, we are similarly situated.
Yes.
High concentrations of dumpings. And while the first district has adopted a clean streets program, in District 9 we've adopted a clean and green program, but with the same objectives. And so we appreciate the collaborative effort with sanitation, building safety, the police, community nonprofits, all have really come together in ways that we haven't before to address the issue and to target the resources in ways that help the community, makes the community feel that we are investing in them, that we care about them, and the other benefits are that people start feeling better about themselves, the community starts being looked at differently, and so I was happy to second this motion. I am a firm believer in this collaborative approach and the need to focus resources where they're needed. You know, First District,
Yep.
Watts, the 9th District, is, you know, those areas have been neglected. Today, well, yesterday we began cleaning out an alley on 52nd and Broadway. It's like a T, and so it's kind of it's invisible.
Yes.
And, you know, we had building and safety, street Bureau of Sanitation, street services folks there, police with over 100 years of experience, Councilman, 100 years, combined experience. They said they had never seen an alley like that before. You know, garbage piled up 4 or 5 feet. You know what I'm talking about. We brought pictures around, videos around, right? A homeless encampment in the middle of it, you know. They pulled out yesterday, I understand that there were 5 dump trucks, 10, what's the capacity?
10 tons.
10 tons, 5 10-ton dump trucks, full.
Yeah.
And they're only about halfway through. Only about halfway through. And so, you know, we have to, again, focus resources where they're needed, I think, is encouraging our agencies to work together in ways that we haven't before. You know, our council office, I know the other offices are happy to provide that coordination. But, you know, it's a quality of life issue. And we both campaign, we all 3 campaign on issues associated with quality of life, improving the environment, you know, where our folks can live and work and play. Many of these folks said they had not had access to their alley in 7 years.
Yep.
Before this trash was removed. I mean, we just take it. We take it for granted. You know, you wonder how can people live in that kind of a situation. You know, and they can unwittingly contribute to it because after a while the trash is out there. They just throw the stuff over the.
Come from the heart, Kern. Coming from the heart. That's the passion we need around here.
they throw stuff over the fence, and so I'm happy to. I'm happy to join my colleagues in just welcoming the assistance, the commitment, the collaboration, the investment. You know, we both have allocated resources, you know, not initially intended for that, but it's a priority. And so, and if we're not willing to put money up for it, you know, sometimes it's lacking. So
And Senator, did you notice when we cleaned up, then people were amazed. They came out.
They're amazed.
They
They're
had
happy.
to come out to the backyard.
They're happy. They had never been in their backyard before. You know, a guy talked about he couldn't have his kids play in the yard because it was up against this trash heap.
Right,
You know,
right.
and so they're just thrilled, elated, and they're gaining confidence in their government again.
Yep.
You know, they're gaining confidence in their government that the government really does care and that the quality of life is important, and not just on one part of town, but in all parts of town. And so I'm happy to join with my colleagues in welcoming you here and look forward to your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Price. I also like to note we're joined by Public Works Commission President Kevin James. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here and joining us. I know you too and your colleagues have embraced this program and want to thank you for your continued service. So the question, aside from CDBG funds, are there any funds that have been allocated in this pilot program?
Yes. Good afternoon, honorable council members. Alex Helou, Assistant General Manager for the Bureau of Sanitation. I have to tell you, I mean, a lot of the thanks that been mentioned here goes to the staff in the Bureau of Sanitation, Solid Resources Group, who really, when the challenge came from Councilman Cedillo, they stepped in and they said we could do better. From our operations staff in the field to some of the staff that are behind me from Collection and Support Services Division, they're very committed to the communities. They want to make it better. We knew we could do better. One of the things I think that Councilman Cedillo mentioned is that initially when the call used to come to 1-800-773-CITY, the call used to come in, or to 311, the sanitation goes out, pick up bulky item, the mattresses, the refrigerator, the couches, and we leave the other non-bulky item because it's not part of our fee, the solid resources fee. And so we leave it for the other, our sister bureau, street services, to go pick it up. Councilman Cedillo wanted to change that paradigm, and he said, well, I want a one-stop agency that goes in, picks up all the material, and then handle it. In addition to cleaning, to taking the material out, we would also told we need to sweep. So we started sweeping these alleys. First, we used hand brooms with using LA Conservation Corps and some of our staff members. Later on, we found out there's certain vehicles that could fit in those small alleys, such as sweepers, and we started sweeping those alleys. So when we turned it over back to the community, not only we removed the bulky, non-bulky item, we also cut the weeds, we swept the area, we tried to give it back like 1,000 times better than it used to be before. And that's what our operations staff wanted to leave it in much better than when we started. I'm happy also to note that when the CD1 pilot project allowed us to develop a plan how we could do it in other council district. We started about 2 weeks ago in CD9, and you could see really the area how it's basically dramatically improved. We're also targeting CD9 and 10 and 11 and 15. And if you look in the back of our report, in one of the attachments, it mentions all the illegal dumping programs that we are doing right now. Quickly,
How many people have we arrested, prosecuted
we'll come
for
to that
illegal
in a quick
dumping?
second.
It's all about personal responsibility as well.
There is also the house pickup program that we're going to be doing a pilot starting in April. We have worked with the city attorney's office in putting a waiver that the residents have to sign in. So when they make the call, they have the two options. If they're not home, they're working and they just want to leave it out on the porch or the curb, we still go out and pick it up the next collection day. If they would like us to go into the house, they'll have to sign a waiver, have the unit, whether it's refrigerator or couch, be basically disconnected, we'll just carry it outside. So that we'll be starting that in April as a pilot program, and we'll report back to CD1 how that one is working. Speaking about the enforcement, right now we are not doing any enforcement. We have concentrated on changing the behavior and educating the people that there is a means for them to take care of this material legally. In the previous budget, we did have 2 positions allocated. Unfortunately, they've been cut since that time. So maybe that's something in the budget we can talk about, reinstating 2 inspectors that were funded the multifamily bulky item. We can put those positions back in the Bureau of Sanitation, and we can aggressively go after for those who are basically commercial dumping. If a resident put it out, I think we can educate them the first time, the second time, and third time, which we do in a lot of multifamilies. When we see there is illegal dumping or material outside the multifamily, we try to do education and work with the community, and that's why we have our community groups. Janice, Renee, and Sarah, and Vladimir, and
Sarah's great. Don't take her away from us. Sarah's great in our district.
so that's really their function, to go out and educate the residents about how we can do it better. Also, as we mentioned in our report, there's the Fuse fellow who will be working with us and the CAO and the Public Works in order to come up, what do we need to do differently? Somebody from the outside might have a different vision, what we have been doing repeatedly. We have the flyers, we have the letters, we're putting the banners, the councilman mentioned, and other things. I think
Alex, can you explain the paper trail? Give us the paper trail when somebody comes into the police station and hands the desk officer, I just saw this knucklehead dump in this alley at 123 Main Street. Where does that report go?
this Bureau of Street Services.
Goes to Street Services.
And they the one do the investigations, the follow-up. They're supposed to go over the material, look up see if there is any evidence. We have done some ourselves just to track to see who dumped it in an alley. We pulled it out and then we pass it on to Street Services and LAPD for further looking into it. But if we can get these two positions back into sanitation in the next budget, and I think those are special funded, we can help us to do the enforcement.
And that enforcement, is it citywide with those two, or just in areas of special need?
These were, in the beginning, they were citywide, Councilman.
Because what we're finding in parts of the city is we're making a huge effort in cleaning the alleys and bringing in nonprofits. We have the Clean Watts program, the Clean Wilmington program, Clean San Pedro program. And then what you're doing in CD9 and CD1 is incredible. But at the same token, these folks, these knuckleheads need to be held accountable for, going against what we're trying to accomplish here. And I see staff shaking their heads. They're just as frustrated as we are.
Unfortunately, a lot of this dumping happens at night and on off hours. And unless you have somebody who are sitting there looking for a sting operation. Many moons ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, when the city was much better budget.
Yeah, I remember that.
We had
task force.
We had a group from sanitation in the Van Nuys area because the neighborhood at that time in Van Nuys around City Hall were complaining about people coming in and dumping in an alley. And so we were able to stake that area with LAPD. But since the budget cuts and everything else, unfortunately this was one of the programs that was eventually eliminated. We do aggressively go after grants. Our staff were able to secure $500,000 from the state that we were able to use in CD 8, 9, and 10, and those were specific to that area. We also working with Cal Recycle and to see if there's other ways we can get more grant money. Our staff has been successful in getting the tire recycling grant year after year after year, and that basically gives amnesty to people who want to turn on their tires.
Right.
Also, the city provides, if you have a tire, you can take it to any of our 6 collection yards. You can just take in 4 tires a year, or sometimes, you could take more. But we will take them to the yard and we will recycle them because we want to put them back to a good use. And that's where we have a tire vendor who basically recycle them and use them back as an asphalt.
And Alex, I see in your report that you had a great working relationship with nonprofits like the LA Conservation Corps. What role have they played in this pilot program?
In this case, we use them hand in hand with our staff out there as we're moving the bulky items initially from the alleys. They were helping in the lifting, the cleaning, and the sweeping of the alleys. Again, because this is the first time we've been doing alley sweep. We used to pick up the bulky items and say, we did a great job. And, then when we found out, we need to pick up the non-bulky, such as C&D, construction demolition. And as you know, in tight alleys, sometimes we can send our Kubotas, which are the small machines that can pick up the material, or you just have to move it by hand, like, you have a rock. Or.
You have LACC's on contract with the City of LA.
With the City of Los
Right.
Angeles, yes.
And through the Public Works contract.
Exactly. Lisa, would you like to talk about the options we're presenting in this report?
Sure. As you've already alluded to, obviously, the funds to pay for this are a very big issue. As Alex mentioned, we have been successful finding some grants. We've also been able to identify about $150,000 of CDBG money, but obviously the needs are much greater than that. So we have 3 options that were provided in here so that we can address a variety of funding availability. Option number 1 is what was actually submitted as part of sanitation's budget as a service enhancement package to look at homeless encampment cleanups and alley cleanups and other abandoned solid waste. The size of that program, dollar-wise, is about $7 million. That would allow us to do work on a citywide basis. It would not be as intensive as what we've done in CD1 this past year. But this is a more modest program that for many areas of the city would still be an increase in service at a price point that's, we're hoping, a little more manageable. Option number 2 that's included in here would be taking what we've been doing in CD1 and really making it a citywide program. Doing that is looking like it's in $25-30 million range. So obviously, that's a pretty big ask considering what's going on with the general fund right now, but that would be what would be required in order to really roll this out, address the motion, and make this a citywide program. One thing to point out on these options is this is just focused on the cleanup aspect. If part of the work does involve a homeless encampment, it doesn't involve some of the ancillary issues of storing items and things of that nature. Option number 3 is an a la carte option, where basically we would price services. For instance, what would it cost to have one of our crews come out for a week? And then council offices could look at what the particular needs in their district are and come up with a customized plan. Is it a situation where there's a need for some intensive work and an office would want to rent one of these crews for a month and then maybe go on a sort of a maintenance mode? Or is it a situation where maybe there's the intensive work's already been done in a council district, and you're ready to move into a maintenance mode. Looking at this, we're still tweaking the estimates on that, but it looks like that would run a little under $40,000 per week. And
Per person, per what?
Per a full crew.
3 or 4 or 5?
A full crew, right. So we would have our maintenance laborers, our refuse truck operators, basically everything that would be required to come out and do the full cleaning, hauling things away, equipment rental, the whole package. And so those are the different options that we've identified that based on funding availability could go forward. Just to give you a little more feedback for our option 1, which we did include in our budget request as a service enhancement, our preliminary meeting with the mayor's office budget staff, the CAO budget staff, they felt with the projected general fund deficit next year, it would be difficult to get this amount of funding. So their recommendation back to us was working with the council offices individually and finding out what funds those offices could bring to bear to the issue, if not to completely address it. Potentially, it could be easier to find some general fund monies if there was a match coming from the council offices.
Has your bureau have you guys taken a look at your dollars as well? Can this fall within your budget? You're shaking your head.
Absolutely. We've looked very hard at that.
Really dissect your budget as well.
And so we do have certain funds that can be used for some of the work. For instance, there was the mention of the multifamily bulky item program. So some of our bulky item funding can be used when we're doing work in a residential area, because it's only our residential customers, single-family, multifamily, that pay into this fund. So if we have an area that's completely commercial, they don't pay anything, so that becomes an issue. However, as Alex mentioned, we used to address this by just going out, getting the bulky items, which was what we were being funded for, but not addressing the other aspects, the loose debris, the type of sweeping of the streets. So that's the part we really can't cover under our special funds, because the monies coming from our ratepayers have all sorts of state law strings attached to them that, for instance, under Prop 218, anything one of our ratepayers pays can only be used to provide service to that property. We can't take those funds and then use them for something that's more of a general public benefit. So that's been the big constraint on our program.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Colleagues, any other questions, comments?
Yes, I think a couple of things as we talk about now managing limited resources. We have to understand that the acuteness of this problem is in places where there's density. And so this is not a problem in Brentwood. It's not a problem in Westwood. It's not a problem in, Century City. The commercial dumping may be, and that's something that we have to look at, surgically, strategically. Mm-hmm. But that this is really a problem that's taking place where there is tremendous density. And so we know where those communities are. We see them. So that's one. Two is I think we also have to realize some of the benefits of this program has been the efficiency of allowing one agency to capture and do more than one. Too many silos sitting side by side. We need to allow people to go out and do more things, not go there. It drives the public crazy. They see us pick up a couch and a sofa, or a sofa and a chair, but then leave the tire. Right, that's somebody else. Somebody else has the tire, and then somebody else has the electronic. And they sit there and they're like going crazy. Now, we involved the community and did the cleanups. They don't get the distinctions, right? They're like, hey, it's out there, it's trash on the street. So that's one of the benefits that we have to replicate and institutionalize. And then the third point I want to add to this is we've got to think about partners. So when we cleaned the alleys, we went back, did our cleanups, and painted, took down the graffiti. So then we really started moving these alleys into better public use. And also we have to think financially about our partners. we have opportunities for advertising on these big valleys, right? And we should take advantage of that.
Right.
You know, we should take advantage of these big valleys, and if we can go out and generate from the local businesses or from some of our better and bigger corporate partners, then let's do that like we do on a bus and we do on a bus stop. Let's use that
Right.
to help both to help pay for operations and help change the infrastructure. So those are some of the things that we would like to be considered as we go forward.
Very good. Should we have a motion to approve this item?
Great
So moved.
report.
All right.
Thank the report.
Well done.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Before us are three options. So within the recommendation, they're asking which option would we like to move forward with? So,
Option 1 was $7 million. Option 2 was,
30?
25 to 30, and the last option is menu.
well, I like the 25 to 30.
So do I.
And I'd like to move that.
Yeah, I like 25 to 30, and I like the item 3 as a backup, because I still think that each office should have some
Yeah,
flexibility.
each office, each
Moving
respective
resources
council
around.
district has different needs,
Absolutely.
right?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll move to support option 2 in the report with option 3 at a close second, right?
That was 25, yes. And then we just keep moving forward until we see Krikorian.
Right.
Yes. So that'll be the order of item number 3.
and
And-
Mr. Chair, at this point, then these recommendations from our committee will go to the Energy and Environment.
E&E Committee, right, that's what I was told. Fantastic. And will it ultimately hit Budget and Finance?
I do not believe this is,
Okay,
yeah. It's currently not referred to budget.
okay. Okay, that. Okay.
Go with that?
All right.
Better.
So that would be the order. Thank you again to Mr. Cedillo, his team, and Bureau of Engineering as well for incredible work that you're doing. And we continue to appreciate your hard work. I'm sorry,
Sanitation.
I said BOE, my bad. Bureau of Sanitation. We love you, we thank you.
Love them.
Thank you so
Love
much.
them.
Thank you. So with that, that concludes our Public Works Gain Reduction Committee. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Well done.